Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Property Subcommittee of Perth and Kinross Council on Monday, the 23rd of August. I'd just like to welcome everybody to the meeting this morning. And do we have any apologies or substitutes this morning? Please speak out.
I'm Carol Taylor. I'm substituting for Greg Boland in terms of officers. Okay, thank you, Carol. Okay, move on. Are there any declarations of interest?
Oh, convener.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart substituting for Councillor McCall.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest on any of the items this morning?
No.
No. Okay, we'll move on to the minute. I propose, just for information, I propose to take items 3 and 4 in public session and then move into private session for item P1. So move on to item 3, which is the minute of the Property Subcommittee of the 14th of June. Is everyone content that that is an accurate reflection of the minute of the meeting?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Any matters arising? No, thank you. We move on to item 4, which is the school estate programme, and I wonder if I think it would be possibly Carol Taylor or Stephen Crawford to take us through the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Lyle. I'm going to begin and Stephen's going to join me at some point in the process. So this is obviously a regular update report of the school estate. The report details key milestones achieved since the last report, which I think was in April, and the appendix provides detail on all projects which are being reported on through SP&R committee. Before we go into the report in detail, I thought it'd be important to give some context around about the environment in which projects are working at the moment. It'd be fair to say that it's quite challenging in terms of construction projects, and we've referred to this in report under section 2 and section 3, but I'm going to pass over to Stephen Crawford to talk in more detail about the market and potentially the impact of the climate change targets on some of our projects.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Thank you, Carol. Committee, I've included a number of comments in section 2 and section 3 with respect to the current construction market. There are a number of well-publicised market factors that are creating uncertainty in delivery of current projects. I think projects that are currently on site are experiencing delays as a result of the fact that the contractors cannot get materials, especially finishing trades. An example of that would be Perth Grammar School during the summer holidays. We've done all the works but are awaiting the toilet cubicles to finish the job, and it's outside the control of the contractors to source them from the market at the moment. The construction industry, I think, for a long time has operated as a just-in-time policy. And with currently the delays in supply, it's proving far more difficult to close out jobs. In projects that are about to go to site, we've obviously got estimates and projections, and we're finding it difficult at the moment to get the quotes. One, get quotes in, and 2, get quotes in that are firm and with confidence that they can be delivered. So, I mean, one of the reasons for these are, there's a significant upturn in worldwide construction workload at the moment after contracting during the COVID lockdowns. COVID-19 recovery and constraints in manufacturing and distribution. You've seen much narrative about the not having enough lorry drivers in the UK, and that fundamentally affects getting materials from ports or from manufacturing elsewhere in the UK. Supply issues from the EU, but also worldwide. The construction market is a worldwide sourcing pool. And there has been, certainly after lockdown 1, there was a lot of stockpiling by major contractors on projects that they had on site, and that's actually now, we've worked our way through all that stockpiling. So the issue is on site just now. It's difficult to get materials, and this is all resulting in a raw material cost inflation for a variety of factors: COVID-19, Brexit, rising oil prices, and various other things. So I think all I can say is to the committee members is we are trying to manage this as actively as possible, but it's becoming more difficult on site, and certainly we've got a number of projects now, tenders having been received, and we're finding that difficult to deliver those within budget. So I think I'm happy to take questions on those, any of that.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephen. And I note we have one question from Councillor Wilson at the moment. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, convener, and thanks, Stephen, for the update. I think I've got a general understanding of the problems. This could lead to cost inflation on quite a lot of capital schemes that we've got at various stages. How do we plan for that, given that the degree of unknowns are fairly considerable at the moment? And I'm not talking about the detail, but it's kind of the mechanism of how can we look at that, because we've got a number of very critical capital schemes that are currently on the go, City Hall being one of them, and others like school projects that are in the can for getting ahead. I wonder just how we're going to cope with all of that. Have you got a plan, sir?
Well, each project normally has a contingency to account for unforeseen things. If a project's tendered at a fixed price, we would normally expect it to be delivered at a fixed price. You know, I'm not going to talk about the City Hall at this committee, but certainly the education projects, we've generally been good at delivering them pretty much to what the budget was. We're at key tendering stages for the next big project to go to site is North Muirton Balhousie replacement primary school, and I'm experiencing significant projections of increased costs there. Now there's two things there: whether we consider this a inflation that's going to be maintained, or is this a blip? And there's those two questions that are currently, well, I'm currently considering that. You know, normally any price increases, Councillor Wilson, would be accommodated within the capital planning process with additional money being added to a project. But we're obviously reviewing capital in October. But there is a material question of whether this is a blip, or whether this is going to be maintained for the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay. Thank you. I'm grateful. I realise it's a very difficult, complex situation, but thanks for the update.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Just a short clarifying question, actually, and apologies for not having had time to look this up in advance of the meeting. I wonder if someone could confirm for us, there's a reference to the construction being closed down in March of 2020. Obviously, I recall that well. Can someone remind us the precise dates of the mandatory construction shutdown and also the duration of that, or maybe just the dates, and we can estimate the duration of that shutdown? I appreciate as well that once things resumed, it was more difficult because of supply chain issues and the requirement to distance on site, but I'm seeking for just the duration of the mandatory shutdown. Thank you. Okay,
if I could answer that, Councillor. There was no formal shutdown in Scotland, Councillor Bailey. There was guidance that so hence the council didn't cease activity. I think what all the contractors did was recognise the restrictions that the lockdown brought, and so generally most construction sites, my term was withered within a couple of weeks when they were made safe. And then it was late June that there was a formal construction restart programme that was put in place that ramped up over a period of about 8 weeks, and still exists in terms of council or projects working on site with appropriate safe working arrangements.
Okay, thank you. So around about 3 months, but then a knock on as well. Then thank you for the answer. Thanks.
Yeah. And the fact that I just add that I've spoken to some of the construction industry who are still concerned about some of the restrictions that they're having to work under. But, any further questions at the moment? Okay, there's no more questions. I think it would be fair if we just went through the different items. Carol, if you maybe want to take us through that for the different parts specifically, and just we go through that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start with the key milestones then. So the first one was for Blairgowrie Recreation Centre. So the planning process has begun and we held quite a successful online session. We anticipate that our planning application will be submitted by the end of September for this project, and hopefully we will gain planning permission by the end of the year or the beginning of next year. So that's Blairgowrie Rec in terms of milestones. Early learning and childcare, obviously we've carried out quite a lot of ELC projects and 1140 hours has been delivered in all of our settings. Rattray Primary School was delayed, however we started construction works for the new nursery in the summer holidays. This project will continue until summer 2022. That's assuming that we don't get into any of the supplier issues that Stephen has talked about, but so far it's gone well. It's a much larger project than just the nursery, so we're doing lots of school infrastructure at the same time. Stephen alluded to North Muirton. The key thing that happened with North Muirton is we've actually started on site. So what we've done is we've demolished the nursery, which was a standalone building in the grounds of the current North Muirton Primary School. So that happened over the summer, and we did a number of works in Balhousie Primary School so that we could bring together the two nurseries, so North Muirton and Balhousie nurseries. So that's gone quite well, and it'll hold us in good stead, I would imagine, when those children go to the new primary school together. Perth High School replacement. Unfortunately, the planning application wasn't submitted, so we expected to submit it last week. However, we had to do some extra reviews of the information, and it's going to go in the next couple of days. So I'm not sure who's here, if it's Charlotte or Magda, but in terms of the minutes, you'll have to record that the planning application hasn't been submitted. In terms of Perth Academy, we did a lot of works over the summer, and we've been working at Perth Academy for quite some time now, and unfortunately much of the works have not been visible to the staff and the pupils. They've been behind the scenes, but over this summer we completed 10 classroom upgrades, we put in place new social spaces, and we've done a full infrastructure upgrade of the PE block. So that's very visible, and the school are really pleased with it. Perth Grammar, I think Stephen's touched on already. We're focusing on toilets at Perth Grammar School at the moment. We've got 4 phases of toilets. Yep. We completed 2 one over the summertime, and 1 had been completed at Easter, I think. So,
Carol, could I ask you just to repeat that? I don't know if it froze for everyone else, but my screen froze there when you started speaking about that.
Was I on Perth Grammar School? Yes. So basically, yep. Perth Grammar School, we're doing a series of toilet refurbishments. So we have 4 phases planned. 1 took place over Easter, 1 took place over the summer, and we've got 2 still to go. And I think when in the detail in the appendix, you'll see that basically we've had to delay the completion of phase 3 and the start of phase 4 due to supplier issues. Okay. I think there's a couple of questions before I go into the next bit.
Okay, thank you. Yep, 2 questions. Firstly, Councillor Wilson, then Councillor Shires. Councillor Wilson.
I'm quite happy to wait till Carol finishes and we can maybe take all the questions in the winner, convener, if that would be okay.
Okay. Carol, I don't know if you have anything I have to add other than the conclusions and the note, the fact that we note the paper, but carry on.
Yeah, no, so I was just going to do some of the detail of a couple of the projects that we didn't actually pick up on. I think within the appendix, you know, we note that the passive house has been quite challenging for Blairgowrie Rec in relation to the design, and that there is a potential design issue in relation to drainage due to requirements of Scottish Water, and I think that's because it's a much bigger building than we had before. But that's not necessarily unusual, I would say. I think Stephen already alluded to North Muirton and financial close being delayed due to the difficulties in obtaining tender packages from the subcontractors. I have nothing to add at Perth Academy. Perth Grammar, all the details in there in relation to the progress update. So we do have supply issues in relation to some of our materials. Perth High School, there are no current issues. We did experience some delay in terms of our submitting planning due to some technical discussions we were having about the facade of the building. We won't have an agreed programme for Perth High School until the beginning of the year when we agree stage 2. And I think that's it. Rattray we've done already, but within the appendix it details the work that took place in Rattray.
Okay, thank you very much, Carol. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, and thanks for continuing with the report on your flow, Carol. The first thing I want to say, rather than ask a question, convener, is to thank Carol and our team and the Stephen and the property team for all the work they do in this. This is a kind of headline report in some ways, but there's a huge amount of work that goes on. And I just want to record my thanks for the amount of coal shoveling that is done to get these reports ready in the day-to-day work. Perth High School, Carla, maybe didn't hear you because there was a wee blip when you were talking about one or two of the items. An IT blip, not a blip from yourself. It says here that the planning application was submitted in August 2021. Well, we've still got a week or two to go. Has it actually gone in and been registered?
No, it's due to be registered at this week. We wanted to get it in and registered last week, but actually we had to do a review of the documentation again. But I had a conversation with Brian this morning, and Brian's on the call, and he told me that it will be in this week, so it should be submitted in August. I don't know, Brian, you want to add something?
No, that's correct, Carol. Yes, it's just really been a timing thing while the work's on at the schools as well, trying to get all the work done between the on-site stuff completed for the pupils going back, and to get all the documents reviewed just proved challenging. It doesn't have any impact on the programme overall from where we were at, but yes, it'll be submitted this week.
Thank you. I just wondered if I'd missed it, if there was something that had gone wrong in my system. But I think, Carol, you said also about the high school that the detailed programme beyond the application going in will not be confirmed, I think, until when?
When we get stage 2, which I think is at the beginning of the year. The expectation is it'll be at the beginning of the year. Yeah, so we have it down as January 22 and February 22 for financial close at this point. So that will be the earliest that we'll get a confirmed programme.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the academy, and again, thanks for all the works that have been done there. One of the schemes, and Stephen knows about this, was drainage works, both associated immediately with the school, like downpipes and rainwater goods and stuff like that, both above ground and below ground. And part of it was the improvement of drainage in the grounds. Has that now been completed? And maybe that's a question for Stephen, but Carol might know the answer.
I think it's definitely one for Stephen.
Yeah, I think Councillor Wilson, the issues that were previous were as much about in the mapping, that we mapped all the existing ground drainage in the site. We identified all the collapsed drains in the site, and that was completed, and those were rectified. However, there are further works depending on how far we want to go to minimise drainage issues up there. So the only immediate works were dealt with.
Okay, thanks for that. I think, Convener, the climate change issues of biblical rain events in Viewlands is pretty well recorded now, but we have been affected by many floods. I say many, but they're not many for the people involved if you live in Oakbank Crescent. So I'm glad to see there's still an ongoing opportunity to resolve some of these. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I am aware of the localised flooding issues that we have, absolutely. Councillor Shires.
It'll teach me to come in after Councillor Wilson as he's asked some of the questions. I just start off as well thanking officers, because I know there's been a power work going in difficult circumstances. So Carol, thank you very much. I wanted to ask about the online consultation that was done at the Blairgowrie Recreation Centre. I did participate in it just to see how it worked, and it certainly seemed to be very efficient. And you know, whether that was a view from officers that this was something that had worked well, and whether it's something we might continue with future similar projects coming along. And on the document about Blairgowrie Recreation Centre, this issue with Scottish Water, we're not has that come as a surprise to us? Is that something we were expecting? And is that likely to hold anything up? And equally, are there likely to be similar issues if it's regarding the size of the building? Is there likely to be similar issues with the Perth High project, or is that not likely to be the case? And just to give a bit of positive feedback, some very positive feedback about the works done at Rattray Primary School, and that was from a bunch of pupils that I happened to meet the other day who were raving about it. So that's good news, because I think we possibly underestimate the fact that pupils in our schools, they do, talking about the Perth Academy stuff, about a lot of the infrastructure stuff was the behind the walls thing that they didn't see, but when they actually do see it, what a positive impression it makes on their learning environment. So thanks to officers for that work.
Okay, thank you very much. There's sort of two questions and one comment in there. So the first question would be on the consultation process. Are we repeating that elsewhere?
Yeah, so I think I would bring Brian in on that, because Brian actually took part in the online planning. My understanding was that it was very successful, and I think in line with some parent council meetings we've been to, you get a better uptake in terms of people being able to attend because they can do it online rather than have to come out of the house and have to get someone to babysit and things like that. So I think online planning is a similar sort of thing. But Brian, I don't know if you can give us your personal perspective from having been at the meeting.
Yeah, no, it worked very, very well, certainly from a technological point of view. Didn't seem any issues. It actually works well from a recording perspective as well, because everything was actually being typed at the time. What you have is a kind of full transcript record of all the questions and all the subsequent information given, and all in real time. So no, it certainly worked well for that process and for the amount of users and so forth we had. Again, it was after we looked at for all bigger jobs. I know at Perth High we had quite a lot of interest and a lot of people at one time and a lot of people involved. So as ever, it would just be a case of making sure the right numbers were available online to deal with everything. But yeah, it certainly worked well. And a lot of the comments were similar to what we've had throughout. We've had a lot of consultation on Blairgowrie already, so there were fairly similar concerns from neighbours we anticipated, and I think most of the answers were able to be given. There was no surprises, certainly, and yeah, the process went fairly seamlessly for the functionality of the planning process.
Can I say, Brian, actually, that it wouldn't be our decision in relation to holding an online planning process. It would be planning's decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's often, I mean, it's changed a couple of times recently as we've been working with planning. Even before COVID, they were already looking at how the consultation works exactly and how the process can be improved, especially during these ones are major applications, so following the pre-application notice process. So planning were already looking and getting us to do different things in slightly different ways even before the pandemic. So we do have a constant dialogue with planning and just how the consultation will be taken forward. We have to give full detail to planning and how it will be done and how the views will be brought back to planning. So yeah, we work very closely with them on that. And you're right, planning have to approve how it's taken forward and be involved within that.
Okay. Carol, that's fine. The second part of the question was on basically the scale of the building and the drainage requirements.
I think Stephen would be best for that one.
I think if I could answer that, Councillor Shires, I think you answered and you asked the question over Perth High School and and Blairgowrie Rec. At Blairgowrie Rec, at the different stages of design, obviously drainage considered, and during the process of the design process, we undertake drainage impact assessments. I think a combination of things at Blairgowrie of the buildings got bigger than originally anticipated. There's probably more hard surfaces in terms of car parking, but also during the development process, the actual, and I'd have to check this, but I think the Scottish Water Guidance and the assessment of their own network in the Blairgowrie area they've now identified to us a requirement for upgraded drainage. So there's a whole number of factors that would result in that as we go through the detailed design process. So some of these things aren't immediately apparent when you open the drawings on day one of how we're going to build this. And Perth High School, I'd have to say I couldn't comment on that directly, albeit there's been nothing I've been told, and we're further ahead on we're quite far ahead on Perth High School, but there's nothing I've been told that would be a drainage issue there. But what I will do is I can return to committee with that, answering that question.
Okay, thank you very much, Pam. Okay. Councillor McEwen, welcome to the meeting. I did see something flash up on the side of my screen that Councillor Lane's trying to get in to the next part of the meeting. I wonder if Audrey could maybe try and get him into this meeting. Sorry, Councillor McEwen.
My question's already been asked. As I said, you follow Councillor Wilson and Councillor Shires, and there's usually very thin pickings on the bones to be asked after that.
Okay, right. Well, thank you very much. So that's us. We've gone through the education update, so I'm minded that we now close this part of the meeting and move into private session. So to do that, if you would shut down, and you will all have been given the opportunity to connect into a second meeting just now. It should all be in your calendars, etc. So if you leave this meeting and join the next meeting, we'll move into private session. Thank you all very much for your attendance this morning.